The language in terms of mental health, mental illness are used in everyday life all the time, everyday talk, but it's sometimes common to say things that aren't really mental illness, to say things from mental illness terminology that aren't really to describe mental illness. Somebody could say, oh, I'm totally OCD about my pencils, when in fact they're just tidy and they like to have their pencils cleaned up. As you've thought about mental health or explored it, have you noticed yourself using these words that to mean something that they really don't, or have you noticed it in others much?
I mean, I've certainly noticed it in others a lot. I don't think that it's really crept into my vocabulary. I think we're now at a place where we are looking at language in a different way, because people have voices that they didn't have before, and there's a tendency, especially in my business, to make things about the PC police, and that, oh, you can't say anything anymore, and it's not so much that you can't say anything anymore. It's that there are certain groups of people, segments of the population, who just can't hear certain words anymore because, like, hey, that's me, and I'm not just a punchline. I'm a feeling person, and this word that you're using because it pushes a laugh button actually means something more to me than it does to you. And because I've seen other people do that, I've become way more aware of it in my own speech and try to be careful about stuff. I'm sure there's still plenty of things I say that I shouldn't say anymore and that people would be upset by, but I'm trying, and I think that that's kind of all people are asking. It's like people are just saying, "Could you try not to do this?"
Yes.
Make an effort.
I think the theme of this show is we're trying.
Yeah. Well, Anna, as somebody who's dealt with actual addiction, like, what do you think when someone says, "Oh, I'm so addicted to that show"? Does it be like,
The
no,
word
because your life
addiction,
hasn't been destroyed?
I guess the word addiction used that way doesn't bother me. The phrase that bothers me is off someone's meds, like to say, oh, must be off their meds today. As a culture, we've come to recognize that to speculate about whether or not a woman is menstruating is not polite and also belittles her. So kind of like that. It's like you're blaming the chemicals. You're trying to figure out how someone's behaving by what you suspect are the chemicals going on in their body, and that's disrespectful, and it also kind of marginalizes people who use meds, which, I would not be here, if it without, yes. Team Lamictal.
Well, I find myself freely using crazy, nuts, and bonkers quite often, but I don't think bonkers is an actual medical diagnosis. So I kind of give myself a pass that I'm not sure is warranted.
As official crazy people, I'm a crazy person, so I would say bonkers is fine. I have a particular pet peeve, and I don't want to offend anybody. That's a terrible thing to always say, by the way. That's like you're usually going to get in trouble. But when people use the terms crazy and insane to describe this political moment that we're in, it bothers.
Got a better term?
Bonkers. If you are ever going to use the word bonkers, now is the time. It'll be in history books.
As crazy people, we give you the permission.
Yeah.
Ted and Aimee, how about you? How do you encounter these sorts of words? Even the specific words, like psychotic, schizophrenic, PTSD, OCD, that kind of thing.
I think I know. I think a lot of my friends know what those words mean and use them to pretty correctly. The OCD is that's the most egregious, usage. It personally, I have a slight problem with people saying that somebody's a psychopath, because I feel like I know a couple of actual psychopaths, and it's not that fun. But yeah, I do feel like I'm a fellow crazy person, so I don't mind using the term crazy or having other people use it. I don't know. Like, people are definitely more educated about mental illness than they used to be.
Do you think people, like, when they hear a word like schizophrenic used to describe somebody who clearly isn't schizophrenic, do you think people make that distinction in their mind? Like, are people automatically translating it and saying, oh, I see what they're saying, it doesn't mean that they're right?
No, that's just like such a dumb thing to say, like, oh, I'm so schizophrenic, I can't make up my mind. Like, that's really, like, I don't know, that seems like something that you'd see in, 1952's edition of Jokes for the John or something. Like, it just seems like very archaic of a usage.
And a highly specific reference, too.
Yeah, wow.
I have stayed in Aimee's guest room before. One of many.
Ted, what about you? Have you run across this issue?
I think I'm in a similar place with Aimee, where call it the bubble that I've created for myself at this point, but maybe it's just the older I get, the more relationships that I have wind up with people who actually understand the power of language and try to be empathetic to its use in the world, and also a lot of people who actually have a lot of these problems, and so they rarely get flung around in a pejorative or pointlessly used way. I guess I'm lucky to say in my circles, and I was going to say before you followed up your psychopath comment that, like, that's something that we would say every now and then, but we would actually mean it about the person that we were talking about.
You are in the music industry.
Right. And then I think in my own life, in my own grasp of these terms, the work that I've done in programs and just among friends, and actually learning what they mean, has helped me to define certain things and certain processes that I'm going through for myself. And so I use them more in conversation with people, but I actually feel like I have a better grasp on what I'm talking about when I do it now.
Have you run into an issue where you've tried to describe, any of you, what you've tried to describe what is going on with your mental health, and have people say, oh, depressed, yes, I got depressed when my team lost in that big game, where people just don't understand because these words have been so co-opted?
Well, there's definitely people who don't, I don't know. I mean, I sort of recall in the past maybe encountering somebody.
Dum-dums, right?
Well, they'll say, like, you ought to do, or like, what your problem is, you just have to, But I really do think now people are much more educated, and, so I grew up in a time where my father's hilarious joke was, anybody who wants to see a psychiatrist should have his head examined. It's a classic.
It's not, it's sort of true.
Yeah.
Because they should have access to health care, is what he was saying.
He was ahead of his time, that man.
What a progressive.
But having said that, he actually did see he sent me to a psychiatrist when I was 6 years old, which actually I think is just more of a measure of what a fucked up child I must have been. Because 1966, you did not send a child to a psychiatrist.
I was going to say, I guess sort of related to that, so as someone with bipolar disorder, I feel like everyone who's seen Homeland thinks they understand bipolar disorder. Or everyone who's seen the Kanye, Trump meeting thinks they understand bipolar disorder. And I have, a few, FAQ answers, which, being bipolar doesn't make you a genius. I wish it did. And it also doesn't make you a bigot. And it doesn't make you have, hateful opinions or anything. It just makes you a person with bipolar disorder. So, yeah.